Everyone wants to bash the media these days. Did you hear that it was their fault that Americans care more about Paris than Beirut? But who is the media anyways? In our changing world, this is a harder question to put our finger on, as more and more people are gaining access to the conversation. But just because more people are able to share their stories doesn't mean that the truth is any easier to pin down. Students at the University of Missouri learned that firsthand this past week, as we watched our own story be told with ridiculous headlines such as, "Was the poop swastika incident a giant hoax?"
It's not that I don't trust it, it's more that I don't feel that it has my best interests in heart anymore.
It's really disheartening to see breaking news followed up right after with political theory and opinion about why that is. It's feeding people what they should think about content rather than letting them decide for their own.
It is easy to see why people would be frustrated. Today, 90% of the media in America is controlled by only 6 companies.
I would say that the area most needed for improvement is broadcast news, because a lot of the channels have just become so incredibly unapologetically biased. And I'm not just talking about Fox News. I'm talking about, even MSNBC, CNN even. It's just really, it's kind of abysmal in some cases how bad this coverage is, and the existence of so many pundits and talking heads is really turning actual reporting into just kind of editorializing at every opportunity to raise ratings, I feel like.
You know, I think CNN and Huffington Post actually I want to point out as some doing the worst, just because I follow both of them since through high school. I've been a fan for a while of both of those sources, and in recent years both of them have become more and more tabloidy and top 10 lists and fake easy journalism, fluff pieces just like it's nothing. And when they do talk about something actually political or relevant happening, it's relegated to its own section, or it's relegated lower down the page. And I don't know, I feel like we're starting to get really crowded. I feel like those sources, especially because those were the ones traditionally, it was always MSNBC's liberal, Fox's conservative, and those are the moderates. Now I'm not sure where the moderates are.
It takes 2 to have a conversation. You need a talker and a listener. And if you want an informed public, the media is only half the battle.
If you like somebody, you see the best parts of them, and if you dislike somebody, you see the worst parts of them. Let's say that the news is 100% 50-50 objective on any issue, okay? And all they do is neutrally present content, all right? Depending on the individual person's attitude, they can't pick out the bad things and they cannot pick out the good things if a piece of content is neutral. Because individuals go into the information gathering process with their own ideas of what they believe.
Sure, an informed public is nice to have for any human being who wants to make friends with someone intelligent. But for our political system, it's quite dependent on. Although our government has only 3 branches, the influence of the press is referred to as the 4th estate.
Journalism does help to an extent. I think that it keeps the public informed, but I also think that the journalists aren't always 100% informed, and a lot of them try to pick the really big stories and the sensational news stories because they're trying to get everyone's attention and all the clutter. So they are informed, but at the same time they're putting out the stories they think are the most interesting or important. So a lot of the actual important things kind of get lost in all of it.
The news never likes to contextualize issues because as soon as they contextualize issues, they actually decommodify their further breaking stories that could potentially happen. If there is a violent crime that happens in East Campus, they could tell the story of violent crime in East Campus over centuries, but then once a person hears that story, they're less likely to read the next story of a violent crime that happens in East Campus. They decommodify their own industry by contextualizing information.
News organizations are always having to balance the interests of advertisers with the public. But now, as most young people get their news from Twitter, as opposed to it arriving at their doorstep every morning, information gathering has been increasingly difficult to fund.
the journalist has to consider public opinion and has to consider the context of what they're reporting. Obviously, that's never going to change. It's hard to say that something's still relevant when we have to wait for a 24-hour cycle in order to actually report it to the people that are clamoring to hear about it. I think that instantaneous and specifically tailored interest news is going to be the future, for better or worse, because that causes kind of an echo chamber effect in terms of what we believe, because we're just seeking out that which we already agree with or are already interested in.
Journalism isn't dead. So long as there are people, there will be information that needs to be communicated. Maybe it's just growing pains. Maybe we're at a transitional period for journalism and we'll find a routine that makes us happy in no time. But with voter turnout at an all-time low, it is incredibly important that we don't let the fourth estate just roll over and die.